High School. My name is Christopher Van, and again our pre-flight briefing now on PFLs, practice forced landings without power. Why we need to cover this is in the event of an engine failure where we need to land the aircraft safely off the airfield. Our aim is to fly the forced landing pattern from cruising altitude. Our threat and error management: other airplanes, especially below 1,000 feet AGL. In this sort of height we may find more military traffic and helicopters are flying. Terrain obstacles, engine overheating and engine cooling. Errors that we can make: over banking the aircraft, attempting to land in unsuitable circumstances, and non-compliance with the rules of the air. So I'm sure you're getting well ahead with your air law. To manage both of these, we're going to keep that lookout going at all times, keep those descent checks, wind, using the checklist to learn and commit to memory our engine failure drills and restart drills. And rule 5, so 500 feet AGL we must not infringe, and 1,000 feet over settlements. So the exercise itself. Initially we'll have a start looking at review the glide approach and landing. As I'm sure you've been practicing around the circuit, gave you a feel for the gliding range. On that, we'll just adopt the best glide airspeed, and this will be specific to the aircraft you fly, so it's something we will have committed to memory. And we're going to just get a feel for the approximate gliding range and try and judge how that is seen through the canopies. And we can try and use the wingtips as often a good tool. Our field selection, the next thing. Well, things to think about. It can be termed as 5 S's, you may read it in the books. And the things we're looking for is the surrounds of the field. We don't want any pylons, we don't want obstacles as we're flying in, trees, hedges, that kind of thing. The size of the shape of the field. We want a suitable size that we could land the aircraft and not that we're running into a hedge or a ditch at the end. The shape, we want to be approximately into wind and a suitable direction to land the aircraft. The surface of the field, we want to be smooth and short cut. We don't want to be landing into long crop fields or ploughed fields or ridges if we can help it. However, difficult to judge. And finally, the slope. We don't want to be landing with too much of an upslope or a down slope, as it's difficult to try and land and have a safe landing. The forced landing pattern. We'll commonly start this exercise between about 2,500 feet and 3,000 feet AGL above the ground. As soon as something happens, the first priority is to fly the aircraft, and I cannot emphasize that enough. There will be a bit of startle factor, and it will be a bit of a shock, and it may well come out of the blue when you're not expecting it. So the first thing you must do is to break through that and fly the aircraft, pitching the aircraft and selecting the best glide. Remembering the attitude controls the airspeed. After that, we're looking to locate a field in gliding range and look ahead, and is there anything obvious you could land on? Disused runway or an airfield, nice bit of open space. However, unfortunately it's not always the case we can have an airfield ahead of us, so I'd suggest, if to your advantage, to turn downwind. That will give you more options as you travel over the ground. At this point, also then looking to have a look then to the left hand side of you, suggesting as you're on the left hand side of the aircraft to do a left turn for downwind. Then look left and try and pick yourself a field, a nice largest field you can see with our suitable criteria. Select the initial aiming point. We want to be about a third to half the way into the field, and we want to be selecting a point over the ground to be 1,500 feet abeam and about 1 nautical mile to 45 degrees off, we're picking a 1,000 feet point. So we're picking 2 points to fly our pattern. At this point, we can now try a restart. And the drills will be dependent on the type of aircraft you fly. We're going to check the aircraft systems, whether there's anything obvious. For example, if you're in an aircraft with 2 fuel tanks, we will switch to the opposite fuel tank. After that, we'll try a restart using the ignition and see if the engine picks up. If the engine doesn't pick up, we're then assuming the engine is dead. At this point, at some point we're on downwind, we want to put our Mayday call out. Remember, it's 3 times you say the word Mayday. I would suggest you look to say what's happened, where you are, and what you're going to do. After that, at some point we're downwind, if you've got time, and again the checks are purely time depending, is then your committal checks, whereby you're switching things off and putting the aircraft in a state it's ready for the forced landing. Now, as we go, I would suggest to review your actions as we go, because things will be happening quite quickly. As soon as you've selected your points, I'd more than likely do a quick review, only a couple of seconds to make sure, yes, I'm happy with this. Once you've done your Mayday call and your checklist actions, again, just think, review yourself, only for a couple of seconds it needs to be, and then, yep, everything is good. You're looking to hit these 2 500 foot points and 1,000 foot AGL points. However, if you find you're getting a bit low and you're not able to make them, we can aim ourselves straight towards our 1,000 foot AGL point. Our last turn in to the field, we're looking to try and keep a constant aspect, looking at our sightline angle to judge that turn into the field. If we find we're getting a little bit low, we could try and tighten the turn and cut the corner. If we're getting too high, we could try and widen that turn. Our other options, if we find we're going too high, for example, so at 2,000 feet, a beam our field, we could look to change our direction of landing, potentially even change our field if we have the options. We could try and dive off the height, but be aware the threat of diving off the height, so you're going to have excess speed at the end of the manoeuvre. So thinking about the energy management of the aircraft as we are manoeuvring. If you really were and had a good amount of height, we could do an orbit. As a rough rule of thumb, one orbit at 30 degrees angle of bank will lose us about 1,200 feet. About one orbit at 45 degrees angle of bank would lose between 800 and 900 feet. But I'd only recommend that if we were very high. If we're low, as I said, we'd be looking just to select an alternative landing area if need be, or change the direction of landing. Finally, as we're coming in towards the airfield, we can then look to move that aiming point closer towards the start of the runway. Using the flaps, or potentially you could even use a side slip. We're looking to position the aircraft towards the start of that field, start of the landing area. Now, at all times, you may have heard this mantra: aviate, navigate, communicate, and always fly in that order. In this whole pattern, we always want to be aviating the aircraft. Even if this pattern didn't quite work out, we're still looking to fly the aircraft first. Now, for the exercise, at 500 feet AGL, we must do a go-around. and the instructor will take responsibility for this. Also be aware of, in our threats, engine warming is going to be part of our management to make sure the aircraft doesn't get too cold. So again, the instructor will be looking after just warming the engine. Would not be unusual for you to see the instructor just warming the engine every a minute or so. Lastly, once we're on the ground, our actions after landing, if this was for real. We'll be looking to contact ATC, the local police, and inform the flying school, where your mobile phone, I'm sure, would be very handy. If not, making your way towards sort of an urban settlement if you can, or a roadside to get assistance. And that is our forced landing without power. And the main emphasis is to fly the aircraft. Common areas we can actually see with this is not flying the aircraft, not trimming the aircraft out at the best glide speeds. Trying not having a plan to fly this pattern and trying to stretch the glide as you're coming in, whereby you're going to get too slow and you lose control of the aircraft. The main priority is always to fly the aircraft at the correct speed. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.